The Stranger by the Fire. The night wind whistled through the empty alleys of the frontier town, carrying dust and the smell of rain long overdue. On the edge of the settlement, where abandoned barns leaned against each other like weary old men, a fire flickered low. Beside it sat a man, tall, gaunt, shoulders hunched like the world had leaned on him too hard for too long. His name was Elias Carter, though no one had spoken it aloud in months. He was a widower, a drifter, once a farmer, once a husband, once a man who believed in planting things and watching them grow. But all that had burned away in one cruel season, drought that stole his crops, fever that took his wife, and debt collectors that stripped his land bare. Now he was just another nameless soul wandering the west, his boots worn thin, his coat patched and frayed, his heart hollowed by silence. Elias warmed his hands near the flames, chewing on a piece of hardtack so stale it might have broken his teeth. He thought about moving on come morning, maybe to the next county, maybe to nowhere in particular. A man without ties had no destination, only motion. That was when he heard it. A sound too soft to be danger, too hesitant to be the howl of coyotes. It was a whisper. No, two whispers. And then a shuffle of small feet. Elias stiffened, his hand hovering near the knife at his belt. From the shadows emerged two figures, children, no taller than his waist. Twin boys, barefoot, their faces streaked with dirt, eyes wide but shining with something more than fear. They looked at him, then at each other, as if daring the braver one to speak first. Finally, the boy on the left stepped forward. "You're alone," he said plainly. His voice was thin but carried a strange boldness. Elias narrowed his eyes. "And you're out past your bedtime. Where's your ma?" The second boy stepped closer, tugging his brother's sleeve. "That's why we came. To talk to you." Elias frowned, uneasy. "Talk to me? What for?" The first boy lifted his chin, trying to look older than his ragged clothes allowed. "You want a home, don't you?" The words hit Elias like a rock thrown into still water. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. He wasn't used to anyone saying out loud the thing he hadn't dared admit to himself. The second boy, smaller but quicker with words, added, "And we need a groom for our mother." Elias blinked. He wondered if hunger or loneliness had finally made him hallucinate. But no, the boys were real, their eyes clear, their breaths quick in the chill air. "Now hold on," he said gruffly, pushing himself to his feet. "What kind of fool's talk is that?" The first boy answered without flinching. "Not fool's talk. Truth. We watch you sometimes. You don't drink like the men at the saloon. You don't fight for money. You don't got no house, but you look like you could build one." "And Mama," the second boy piped up, his small hands clenched into fists, "Mama's lonely. We can tell. She tries to hide it, but she is. She prays at night when she thinks we're asleep." Elias swallowed hard. He looked at the twins, then past them into the dark street, half expecting someone to jump out laughing at the prank. But no one came. "What's your mama's name?" he asked at last, his voice rough. The boys answered together, as twins often do. "Clara." The name stirred nothing in his memory, but the way they said it, like a prayer, like a plea, made Elias sit back down by the fire. "You don't even know me," he said. The braver twin shrugged. "We'll get to know you." "And what if your ma doesn't want me?" Elias asked, almost daring them. "She will," the younger one said with the kind of certainty only children carried. "Because we'll tell her you're the one." Elias barked out a laugh, though it was hollow. "And what makes you so sure I'm the one?" The boy met his eyes. "Because you looked at us without hate." Silence fell. Elias felt something stir in his chest, something long buried. He realized with a start that the twins weren't just desperate, they were choosing him. Out of all the men in this broken town, they'd picked the one who had nothing left to offer. The fire popped, sending sparks into the night. Elias stared into the flames, thinking of the grave he had left behind, of the home that had crumbled, of the ache that never left his bones. A home. A family. A second chance. It was madness. And yet, he glanced at the boys. They weren't backing down. Their small faces were set with stubborn hope. "Take me to your ma," Elias said finally. The twins grinned, relief spilling out of them. They reached for his hands as if they'd known him all their lives. And Elias, for the first time in years, let someone hold on to him. As they walked into the night, toward whatever waited at the end of the dusty road, Elias felt something unfamiliar flicker in his chest. Not joy, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, hope. A widow's walls. The road out of town was quiet, a long strip of dirt stretching toward the hills. The twins led Elias like two little lanterns in the dark, whispering to each other in the secret way siblings do, then glancing back to make sure he was still following. Elias walked with heavy steps. His boots scuffed the ground, his coat flapped against his legs, and in his chest a storm brewed. He had agreed too quickly, he thought. A widow and 2 children weren't a burden a man should step into without care. But the twins had disarmed him, softened him with their boldness, their strange faith in him. Not far now, the braver twin announced. Elias squinted ahead. A lantern flickered in the window of a modest cabin, half hidden by cottonwoods. The place looked tired but sturdy, like its owner. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the smell of bread, faint but real, made Elias's stomach growl. The younger twin looked back and whispered, "Mama's still awake. She always waits up." When they reached the porch, the boys didn't knock. They burst inside as though they owned the place, which of course they did. Elias hovered at the threshold, awkward as a thief. "Mama!" the first boy called. "We found him." The word struck Elias hard. Found him. As if he'd been lost. From the small kitchen came the sound of a chair scraping against the floor. A woman stepped into view, wiping her flour-dusted hands on her apron. She was younger than Elias expected, perhaps 30, with hair the color of wheat left too long in the sun. Her face was pale with worry, her eyes quick to search the room. When she saw Elias standing there, she froze. The twins darted to her side, tugging her sleeves, talking over each other. "He was by the fire. He's good, Mama, we can tell. He doesn't drink, he doesn't fight. And he needs a home. And you need a husband." Elias felt heat crawl up his neck. "Now hold on," he muttered, raising a hand. The woman's gaze cut sharp as glass. "Boys. Enough." Her voice carried authority that stopped them cold. They shuffled back, though not far enough to hide their grins. For a long moment, silence stretched between Elias and the widow. He shifted on his feet, suddenly aware of every hole in his boots, every patch in his coat. He wished he'd shaved, though he hadn't owned a razor in months. At last she spoke. "I don't know who you are, sir. But I'd thank you to explain why my sons brought you into my home at this hour." Elias cleared his throat. "Name's Elias Carter, ma'am. I didn't mean no harm. Your boys found me. Said some things that, well, they're children. Got wild notions." Her eyes narrowed. "What kind of notions?" Elias winced. "About me, being your groom." The woman's face went still, as if she'd been struck. Then color rushed to her cheeks. "Samuel. Thomas. Did you say that to this stranger?" The boys exchanged guilty looks, but Samuel, the braver, lifted his chin. "Yes, Mama. We told him. Because it's true. You need someone." Her hand trembled against her apron. "That is not your business to decide." Thomas spoke quickly, pleading. "But Mama, he's kind. He didn't chase us off. He looks like he needs us too." Elias opened his mouth, then shut it. The truth of that last part was too sharp to deny. Clara turned her gaze back to Elias. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry for their forwardness. They've been without a father too long. But I am not in the market for a husband." Elias dipped his head. "Understandable. I didn't come here expecting anything. Just thought I'd better see you face to face before sending your boys back with a tale." Her expression softened a fraction, though suspicion lingered. "And what tale would that be?" "That I'm nobody," Elias said quietly. "Just a drifter with nothing to his name but a pair of hands that still know how to work. Not fit for any family to claim." The room hushed at his words. The twins looked troubled, as if their plan were unraveling. But Clara studied him longer, her brow furrowing. "You've seen hard times," she said at last, almost gently. Elias gave a short nod. "Like most folk." Lost my wife 2 winters ago. Lost the farm the winter after. Been drifting since. Some days I'm not sure why I keep going." Clara's eyes softened at that, though she quickly masked it. "I'm sorry for your loss." Elias shifted, uncomfortable with the weight of her gaze. "Didn't mean to lay sorrow on your doorstep. I'll be on my way. Thank you for hearing me out." He turned toward the door, but a tug on his coat stopped him. It was Thomas, his small hand clutching the frayed fabric. "Don't go," the boy whispered. Samuel added firmly, "Stay. At least for supper." Elias looked to Clara, uncertain. She hesitated, her lips pressed tight, then sighed. "The boys won't rest until you've eaten. And if half what you say is true, you look like you could use a meal." Elias felt gratitude stir in his chest. "I won't say no to bread, ma'am." They sat at the rough wooden table. Clara served what she had, stew thin as water but warm, bread coarse but filling. Elias ate with quiet reverence, as though each bite was a gift. The boys watched him closely, smiling whenever he chewed, proud to have kept him there. Clara ate little, her eyes never leaving the stranger at her table. When the meal was done, Elias pushed back his plate. "That was finer than anything I've had in months." "Thank you, ma'am." She folded her hands, steady but cool. "A meal is one thing. Marriage is another. I want to be clear with you, Mr. Carter. I've been managing on my own since my husband passed. Hard as it is, I can endure. I won't have my boys filling their heads, or yours, with false hopes." Elias met her gaze squarely. "Understood. I wouldn't dishonor your house with false talk. The boys, they see things through different eyes. But I'm not here to push myself where I'm not wanted." The twins shifted in their seats, frustrated, but Clara gave them a look that silenced further protest. Elias rose, adjusting his worn coat. "I'll see myself out." "God bless you, ma'am. And you boys, thank you for the company." He made it as far as the porch before Clara's voice followed him. "Mr. Carter." He paused, turning. She stood in the doorway, arms folded tight. For a moment she looked as if she might scold him again. Instead she said, quietly, "You said your hands still know how to work. Is that true?" Elias nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Farming, building, mending. Work's the only thing that's kept me alive." Her eyes lingered on him, weighing something. "The fence out back has needed repair since spring. And winter's coming. I can't pay you with money, but I can offer supper and a roof in the barn while you mend it." Elias blinked, surprised. He hadn't expected even that much. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "that's more kindness than I deserve. I'll take the work, gladly." The twins grinned ear to ear, their plan not fully won but not lost either. Clara, however, kept her expression guarded. "Then it's settled," she said. "You'll work. Nothing more." "Nothing more," Elias agreed, though in his heart he felt the faintest flicker of something he hadn't dared to feel in years, belonging. That night, he lay on a pallet of hay in the barn, staring at the rafters. The wind rattled the boards, the horses shifted softly, and from the cabin he heard the faint murmur of a woman's voice soothing her children to sleep. For the first time in a long while, Elias did not feel entirely alone. A place to stay. The days that followed slipped into a rhythm Elias hadn't known in years. Each morning he rose before the sun, stretched his aching bones, and put his hands to the work Clara had given him. The fence behind the cabin was half-rotted, its rails sagging where storms had beaten it down. By the end of the first week, Elias had stripped it clean and rebuilt it, his muscles remembering what it was like to build something that lasted. The twins followed him everywhere, bringing him nails, holding boards in place, peppering him with questions. "Did you always know how to swing a hammer like that? Could you build a tree house? Do you miss your wife?" That last question had come from Thomas, the gentler one quiet afternoon when Elias was smoothing a plank. The hammer stilled in his hand. "Yes," Elias said softly. "Every day." The boys didn't press further, sensing the weight in his voice. But after that, they seemed to watch him with even more loyalty, as if sorrow made him theirs. Clara kept her distance at first, busy with the cabin, the garden, her sewing. Yet each evening when Elias washed up and came to supper, she saw the work he'd done, the steadiness in his hands, the patience with her boys. Slowly, her sharp suspicion eased into something else, caution, but not rejection. One evening, after the fence stood strong and true, Clara surprised him with words that left him fumbling. "You've done more in 2 weeks than I've managed in a year," she admitted, pouring stew into bowls. "Thank you, Mr. Carter." "Elias," he said gently. "No need for Mr. I'm not much of anything these days." Clara's eyes flickered, a shadow of pity, or was it understanding, before she looked away. A month passed. Elias patched the roof, split enough wood to last the winter, and even fixed the broken hinge on the cabin door. He never asked for more than food and the barn to sleep in, though the twins often whispered that he ought to stay for good. Clara ignored their whispers. Her heart was cautious, walled high after years of widowhood. She knew too well the cost of relying on a man who might be taken from her by fate or folly. And yet, in the evenings, when she saw Elias laugh at the boy's antics, or kneel to fix a broken toy with the same care he gave the fence, she felt something stir that scared her more than loneliness: hope. The test came one bitter afternoon in November. A storm rolled down from the hills, heavy with sleet. Elias was out in the barn splitting wood when he heard the twins shouting. He dropped his axe and ran. By the time he reached the cabin, 2 men were on the porch, rough-looking, their coats thick with mud, rifles slung over their shoulders. Clara stood in the doorway, her face tight with fear, shielding the boys behind her. Elias didn't hesitate. He stepped up onto the porch, placing himself between the men and the door. "Afternoon," he said evenly. The taller man sneered. "Who are you?" "Handyman," Elias said. "And you're trespassing." The second man spat into the dirt. "We're here for Clara. Her husband owed us money. Debt don't vanish with death. She can pay it one way or another." Clara's voice shook, though she tried to sound firm. "I told you last time, my husband left nothing. I have nothing to give." The taller man shoved a finger toward her. "Then maybe you come with us. Work it off. Kids can stay or starve. Don't matter." The words hit like a whip. The twins clung to their mother's skirts, terrified. Elias's blood boiled. He stepped forward, fists tight. "You'll take nothing from this house. Not the woman, not the children. Now turn around and leave while you still got your teeth." The men laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Big talk for a drifter. Elias didn't give them a second chance. He swung hard, his fist cracking against the tall man's jaw. The second lunged with his rifle, but Elias wrestled it away, shoving him down into the mud. Years of grief and hunger fueled his strength. Within moments, both men were on the ground, groaning. "Next time you show your faces here," Elias growled, standing over them, "you won't walk away." The men scrambled to their feet and fled into the storm, cursing. Silence fell. Elias turned, chest heaving, to see Clara staring at him wide-eyed, the twins clutching her arms. "You didn't have to," she began. "Yes, I did," Elias said simply. "No one threatens what's yours." For a long moment, her eyes searched his face, measuring the honesty, the steadiness. Then something shifted. Her shoulders relaxed, her breath caught, and a tear slipped down her cheek. The twins broke the silence first. "See, Mama," Samuel cried. "We told you he was the one." "Please let him stay forever," Thomas begged. Clara hushed them, but her gaze never left Elias. He lowered his head, suddenly shy. "I'll understand if you don't want me here after that, ma'am. But I couldn't stand by and watch them take you." She stepped closer, surprising him. "Don't call me ma'am, Elias. Not after tonight." His breath caught. "Then what should I call you?" Her lips curved faintly, the first true smile he'd seen from her. "Clara." The storm raged all night, but inside the cabin warmth grew. Elias sat by the fire with the twins nestled against him, Clara sewing quietly across from them. For the first time in years, he felt whole, as if life had given him back what it had stolen. Later, when the boys were asleep, Clara spoke softly, her eyes on the flames. "You said once you had nothing left. That wasn't true. You've got strength, kindness, and a heart my boys already trust. Elias swallowed hard. And you? Clara looked at him, her eyes shimmering in the firelight. I don't know yet. But I'd like to try. The words struck him deeper than any blow. He nodded slowly, a rough smile breaking through. Trying's all I can ask. She reached across the table, her hand brushing his. For a long time, they sat in silence, the storm outside howling but powerless against the warmth within. The months ahead would not be easy. Winter would test them, and the world beyond would never stop demanding. But Elias knew, as he lay on a real bed for the first time in years with the sound of family breathing around him, that he was no longer drifting. He had found a home. And Clara, with her twins watching proudly from the shadows, had found her groom. Not because she had needed saving, but because, together, they had chosen to build something new, something worth holding on to. For Elias Carter, the homeless widower, the long road had finally ended at a door that opened.